From the Sky News Centre, this is PVO Newsday.
Well, a slow clap for the ABS. What a sterling job they did last night. Don't worry, there was no cyber security threat. There was no hack. Why? Because they tell us so. You can believe that. When they knew about this threat that did exist, an attack as it's been described by their cyber security expert, even if the minister is in cuckoo land thinking that it didn't happen, we can trust them. Why? Because yesterday, when they knew all throughout the day that there were some issues with their website, they didn't once tell us the truth. They didn't once, at their multiple media conferences that they have, level with the Australian people about what did or did not occur. They say they shut down the site as an act of caution, and that may well turn out to be true, but how can we believe them when they don't tell us the truth during the course of the day about the very thing that ended up bringing the site down at the end of the day? And what a comfort it is to know that it wasn't a failure of the IT system that resulted in an end to the ability of anyone to access that site last night. What a comfort that they only shut it down because of cyber security concerns. Great. I'm sure people feel really relieved about that when the ABS, that's had 14 cyber security breaches in the last 2 years, has to shut down its site on the one day of the once every 5 years that the thing actually has to be active. Is it any wonder that people wonder what on earth is going on? The minister literally could audition for the part of George Costanza in a new Seinfeld series. It's not a lie if you believe it, was George's advice to Jerry. And the minister, Michael McCormack, seems to think it's not a cyber security attack if you say it's not, even though standing next to you at the very same media conference is the government's cyber security expert, who then describes it as an attack. I tell you, this is an unmitigated debacle. But you know what? People shouldn't be too tough on this government, because in the broader schematic of what this government has done and achieved and managed, this is probably one of the better managed operations by the Turnbull government since the change of Prime Minister in September. In fact, thinking about it really, other than stopping the boats, it's probably one of the better managed pieces of operation by this government through the entirety of its first 3 years and since it's come back into government. I tell you who dodged a silver bullet in no longer being the minister responsible is Kelly O'Dwyer. You can imagine how much some of her Victorian factional enemies down there in the southern state would have been going after her if it wasn't her responsibility. But what is going on here? Michael McCormack, he's the new minister. At one level, you've got some sympathy for him. He's only been there for 3 weeks. Hard to maintain that sympathy, of course, when you see a lot of the homophobic comments that he did back in the 1990s when he was in journalism, in that opinion piece that he wrote. If you haven't seen it, look on my Twitter feed. It is a disgrace. But here we are, the Nationals demanding the small business portfolio in the reshuffle, and haven't they absolutely performed a stellar job since taking it on? And as for the ABS, literally, they do a lot of other things, sure, but their biggest thing is one day, once every 5 years, and they stuffed it up. They comprehensively stuffed it up. Now we find out that the fines, well, they try to assure us that there won't be any fines if you haven't filled out the data as of now. You've still got until September or thereabouts, but that was always the case. There's no concession in that. Some conspiracy theorists, of course, think that maybe this is a trajectory to a return to surplus. Just fine Australians $180 a day for not having filled out their forms when they can't, because the website's been shut down, and then we'll be back in surplus in no time. Be interesting to see if the government tries to enforce these over-the-top fines with their over-the-top data collection that goes well beyond when it needs to go. What a mess, a complete mess by this government. But as I say, one of their better handled pieces of public policy all the same. Labor, though, what are they calling for? Well, at least they're not calling for a royal commission. They want a parliamentary inquiry. That'll achieve a lot. The same sort of parliamentary inquiry that we see in committee frontings by bank leaders, where they tell us that that is meaningless and hitting people over the head with a wet lettuce. They now want a parliamentary inquiry into this, and they tell us that's important and the way to go. But as I say, at least they're not calling for yet another royal commission. IBM, well, apparently they were responsible for the overall management of this. It's a great advertisement for outsourcing of IT. I'm sure that'll help the Medicare debate stay all above board as well. What do you say? It is a mess. Let's bring in Tom Connell. Tom, you and others, you know, defending the ABS, defending the census. I had Laura Jays sitting in for Christina Keneally, talking it all up and criticising those of us that express concerns. Egg all over all of your faces.
I love the way you put words in my mouth there, Peter. We'll have to get some transcripts over the last week or so. I know we're talking a lot about, in particular,